For realism, in fact, the invariable order of the phenomena of nature lies in a cause distinct from our perceptions, whether this cause must remain unknowable, or whether we can reach it by an effort, always more or less arbitrary, of a metaphysical construction. For the idealist, on the contrary, these perceptions are the whole of reality, and the invariable order of the phenomena of nature is but the symbol whereby we express, alongside of real perceptions, perceptions that are possible. But for realism, as for idealism, perceptions are vertical hallucinations, states of the subject projected outside himself, and the two doctrines differ merely in this, that in the one these states constitute reality, in the other they are sent forth to unite with it. But behind this illusion lurks yet another that extends to the theory of knowledge in general. We have said that the material world is made up of objects, or if you prefer it, of images, of which all the parts act and react upon each other by movements, and that which constitutes our pure perception is our dawning action, insofar as it is prefigured in those images. The actuality of our perception thus lies in its activity, in the movements which prolong it, and not in its greater intensity. The past is only idea, the present is ideomotor, but this is what our opponents are determined not to see, because they regard perception as a kind of contemplation, attribute it to always being a purely speculative end, and maintain that it seeks some strange disinterested knowledge, as though, by isolating it from action, and thus severing its links with the real, they were not rendering it both inexplicable and useless. But thenceforward all difference between perception and recollection is abolished, since the past is essentially that which acts no longer, and since, by misunderstanding this characteristic of the past, they become incapable of making a real distinction between it and the present, that is, that which is acting. No difference, but that of mere degree, will remain between perception and memory, and neither in the one nor in the other will the subject be acknowledged to pass beyond himself. Restore, on the contrary, the character of perception. The true character of perception, recognize in pure perception a system of nascent acts which plunges roots deep into the real, and at once perception is seen to be radically distinct from recollection. The reality of things is no more constructed or reconstructed, but touched, penetrated, lived, and the problem at issue between realism and idealism, instead of giving rise to interminable metaphysical discussions, is solved, or rather dissolved, by intuition. In this way, also we shall plainly see what position we ought to take up between idealism and realism, which are both condemned to see in matter only a construction or a reconstruction executed by the mind. For if we follow out to the end the principle according to which the subjectivity of our perception consists, above all in the share taken by memory, we shall say that even the sensible qualities of matter would be known in themselves, from within and not without, could we but disengage from them that particular rhythm of duration which characterizes our consciousness. Pure perception, in fact, however rapid we suppose it to be, occupies a certain depth of duration, so that our successive perceptions are never the real moments of things, as we have hitherto supposed, but are moments of our consciousness. Theoretically, we said, the part played by consciousness and external perception would be to join together, by the continuous thread of memory, instantaneous visions of the real. But in fact, there is for us nothing that is instantaneous. In all that goes by that name, there is already some work of our memory, and consequently of our consciousness, which prolongs into each other, so as to grasp them in one relatively simple intuition, an endless number of moments of an endlessly divisible time. Now what is, in truth, the difference between matter as the strictest realism might conceive it, and the perception which we might have of it? Our perception presents us with a series of pictorial, but discontinuous, views of the universe. From our present perceptions, we could not deduce subsequent perceptions, because there is nothing in an aggregate of sensible qualities which foretells the new qualities into which they will change. On the contrary, matter, as realism usually posits it, evolves in such a manner that we can pass from one moment to the next by a mathematical deduction. It is true that, between this matter and this perception, scientific realism can find no point of contact, because it develops matter into homogeneous changes in space, while it contracts perception into unextended sensations within consciousness. But, if our hypothesis is correct, we can easily see how perception and matter are distinguished, and how they coincide. The qualitative heterogeneity of our successive perceptions of the universe results from the fact that each, in itself, extends over a certain depth of duration, and that memory condenses in each an enormous multiplicity of vibrations which appear to us all at once, although they are successive. If we were only to divide, ideally, this undivided depth of time, to distinguish it in the necessary multiplicity of elements, in a word, to eliminate all memory, we should pass thereby from perception to matter, from the subject to the object. Then matter, becoming more and more homogeneous as our extended sensations spread themselves over a greater number of moments, would tend more and more towards that system of homogeneous vibrations of which realism tells us, although it would never coincide entirely with them. There would be no need to assume, on the one hand, spaces with unperceived movements, and on the other, consciousness with unextended sensations. Subject and object would unite in an extended perception, the subjective side of perception being the contraction affected by memory, and the objective reality of matter fusing with the multitudinous and successive vibrations into which this perception can be internally broken up. Such at least is the conclusion which, we hope, will issue clearly from the last part of this essay. Questions relating to subject and object, to their distinction and their union, should be put in terms of time rather than of space.